This week on the TT Show, we discuss Sony's rumored PS5 Handheld, Samsung's new OLED gaming monitor with a 500Hz refresh rate, new RTX 5000 series specifications, Ubisoft wanting to axe SteamDB charts, FromSoftware being purchased by Sony, Apple slated to release a new ultra-thin iPhone, and we go over some of our favorite review products we've looked at this past week. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the TT Show. My name is Jak Connor. I'm a hardware editor over at Tweaktown, and today I'm joined by my co-host,
Kosta Andriadis, gaming hardware editor at Tweaktown.
Hello, my friend.
Hello.
We are back with another episode of the TT Show, and it seems it's quite hardware-filled this week.
Yeah, it seems everybody is fast forward a couple of years and everybody's going to have a gaming handheld, or gaming handhelds are going to be pretty big in every gaming avenue. Because, I mean, Nintendo Switch, Steam Deck, and, Xbox handheld, and now Sony.
Yes, now Sony. I think the Switch as a form factor kind of really nailed it in terms of I think that's reflected by its unit sales, right? Like, it's just a gangbusters, selling over 114 million units or something like that.
It's 140 something, I think it is.
140. Yeah, it's just insane. And I think other companies like Sony and Xbox, looking at the success of the Nintendo Switch, they're dumb to not jump into this market. So these moves make sense for me. Did this make sense for you as well?
Yeah. I think it was always weird, Nintendo, what they managed to get out of the Switch in terms of the hardware in it, like the Maxwell era NVIDIA chip in there, the Tegra chip, which was part of the very first Shield from a decade ago. And the fact that they...
Dude, don't say that was a decade ago.
Yeah, I mean, it was, if not more. It's and they put that chip in there. It was already old when the Switch launched in 2017, and everybody didn't really know what the Switch was. They were coming off the Wii U, which was kind of a disappointment in terms of it hit nowhere near the levels of the Wii, and so they had the Switch the original Switch. And I remember going to a pre-launch event when Nintendo was like, okay, come and go hands-on with this Switch before it came out. And I always remember that I was like, this is strange, but this is kind of cool, but also confusing, because they had one of their launch games was called 1-2 Switch, which was kind of the Joy-Cons had accelerometers and gyroscopes in it. It was kind of it was like these mini games where you pick up the controller and, who can answer the phone the quickest, because it had a little speaker in there. And it was a bunch of Wii style mini games where they were just, it was well, this isn't gaming to me. This is Nintendo going full toy, kind of like it did. It leaned full heavily. Toy. Yeah, I mean, they were always a toy company initially, right? They just went full toy with that particular game. And then you jump onto Mario Kart, which was the Wii U version now.
Deluxe
higher resolution, the deluxe version, more tracks, more everything. And it was okay, this is cool. And then you had the Pro Control. I'm okay, yeah, now this feels cool. But it was untested, and then you fast forward, and then now it's this huge behemoth. But I think what was stopping other companies was they couldn't really do what Nintendo did. I don't think a Sony could put a super underpowered chip into a handheld, another handheld, and release it. Or even with the Steam Deck, right? Valve had to wait until they could get an AMD APU that was able to play most PC games. They couldn't get away with I'm sorry, you can only play PC games from 2003.
Is this because Nintendo games aren't graphically intensive at all in comparison to say The Last of Us or Halo, or is it more so the scope of the game itself? You're not loading Horizon Zero Dawn.
That's right. Well,
and the massive world that game has on a Nintendo Switch. You're loading Mario Maker.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's probably precisely it. And I think it goes back to the post GameCube era, where Nintendo kind of said, we're not interested in pushing visual fidelity anymore. So when the world went HD in the mid 2000s, Nintendo launched the Wii, as a 480p console, right? As like a
What a
DVD
crazy move.
resolution. And like, it was, the timing was a little bit weird, but at the same time, Xbox 360 and PS3, they, they knew that they had to go HDMI or component, whatever, like the very first HD, which was 720p, right? This is what we're talking about. But Nintendo decided against that because it would require more hardware power to render at that resolution, et cetera, et cetera. So they haven't been, it's never like the only people that really care about like what are the games going to look like are the hardcore gaming community on the Switch 2, right? We're going like, oh, how are the game's going to look? Is it going to have DLSS? We're interested in all that. But we all know deep down that it's going to be old hardware when it comes out and it's going to look good, but like, like they're able to squeeze heaps out of it, but like it's never about being the best visually. Whereas if Microsoft release an Xbox handheld, people are going to be like, well, are you going to be able to play? Is it going to be Xbox Series S visuals on this thing? Like, like there is an expectation that visuals are going to be a part of it, right? Like the visual fidelity on the go is going to be a key component of any sort of PC gaming handheld, any Xbox handheld, and any PlayStation handheld, which is what we're leading into, which is the news story that broke that not only is Sony developing a handheld, but they're targeting PlayStation 5 levels visuals quality, which is kind of impressive.
Wait, so we're talking, it's not going to be 4K. It can't be.
No,
right?
I don't think so, because
Then
there's no point.
what do they mean by, what do you mean, I suppose? Like, what?
Well, they wanted to be able to play
PS5.
PS5 games, right?
Right, but not at the same quality or level of visual fidelity or
probably
refresh rate.
At the same but at a lower resolution.
Okay. Right.
Which isn't outside of the realm of possibility, but it just means that this is
for
probably
$200, we're going to get PS5 level games
not
in my hands. This seems like a pipe dream. For $200, when they just sold the PS5 Pro for what, $700, dude? Come on.
No, it'll be like, 500-600, just kind of like the high-end Steam Decks or whatever, like the ROG Ally or the thing. I think that's what they would be targeting, like 500.
They have to.
Yeah.
You can't get that level of gaming performance for like they can't sell this, whatever this handheld is, this portable, at the price of the PS5 the PlayStation Portal. There's just no,
that's right. And apparently the reason
it'd be
why
the best handheld ever.
And the reason why they're actually apparently going ahead with it is because the PlayStation Portal has sold way more than they expected, right?
Which is something that I didn't expect at all.
I didn't expect
it
it
was
either.
going to be flop
because it felt kind of lazy, right?
It felt like an accessory.
Like you take the PS5 controller and you cut it in half, and then you put a tablet screen in there, and you just run Android and just have it do cloud streaming, like from your console to your handheld, and that's basically what it is, right? Like your console's turned on, but you're sitting on a couch with the PlayStation Portable playing instead, or in another room instead of using a TV. But it goes to show you that even that a lot of handheld gaming isn't the fact that you can take it with you. It's also just being able to do it at home.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the unit sales. The PlayStation Portable 2005 sold 76.4 million units in its lifetime.
Yeah, the PSP, the original PSP,
wow,
was a massive success.
I do remember.
But the PS Vita was kind of weird. And yeah.
Why did that, was that in comparison, like did that come out at the same time as like the Nintendo DS or like 3DS or something like that? That just shat all over it?
It kind of came out after the PS3, I think, and or around about that time. And to be honest, like I was super excited for the PSP. I got the original PSP as well. Like there was a lot of hype surrounding that console, that handheld, because it came at a time that it was like really cool to get that level of visual fidelity on a gaming handheld. The Vita always felt kind of weird to me, and I actually put it down to, I don't think. Yes, it was 2011. I just don't think that they put enough marketing or was mismarketed. But also I think that the Vita is just a weird name for a gaming device.
I agree.
Like if
do you want to take a bet when the Nintendo 3DS came out?
probably around that same time.
Nintendo 3DS release date. So what did you say, 2011?
That's when the Vita was, yeah.
So Nintendo 3DS came out March 27th, 2011.
Okay, yeah.
See, this is why we're good at our jobs, dude. We know exactly what we're talking about. We're like, hold on, let me check the archives. Aww. Yep, 2011.
Yeah.
I was not even doing this job. I was literally not even doing this job right now. No, but that makes perfect sense. Look, the Vita compared to the 3DS, like that. I mean, it put a bad taste in Sony's mouth because considering how much they sold for the portable, and then the Vita comes out, they probably thought like, wow, like this thing is going to be like a hit. And then Nintendo comes out with the 3DS, and then, you know, they sell 16 million units, which is the equivalent of like 6 units compared to what they were expecting. And then since then, they didn't release anything portable wise until the new one.
Yeah, that's
So
that's
it's been
right.
like a hiatus.
Yeah, and the portal was always weird, like you said, because it was like, oh, what's the use case for this? But there is a use case, right? Because then I was thinking about it, like I've got friends that there's this app called Moonlight, right? So you know, there's on PC there's Steam Remote Play, which means you can broadcast Steam to basically any device, really, and
Which is incredible.
but the latency is not it's not like perfect, and even like the bit rate for like the video compressor is not perfect, right? So Steam Remote Play is good, but it's not incredible. But there's this app called Moonlight, which has basically, if you're just streaming from your PC to like a tablet or even like a Steam Deck or a ROG Ally or any sort of like gaming handheld that has Windows or Linux or Android or whatever on it, the latency is like 1 millisecond and the visual quality looks native. It looks like you're playing the game native on your handheld. So like if you've got like a 4080 or a 4070 even, you could broadcast your game to your gaming handheld at home. When you're at home, you could actually have better than PS5 quality graphics that look native running on a tablet or a gaming handheld.
Yeah,
And a lot of people and a lot of people are doing that, right? So like Moonlight is this popular app because there's a market for it. And the PlayStation Portal is exactly that, right? It's like well, yeah, sure, you need your PlayStation 5 needs to be turned on. It's not native. And you go, well, that kind of seems like it defeats the purpose. But no, the end result is better visuals than what you would get on like a native handheld. And for people that want to just sit in bed or sit on a couch while somebody else is watching TV, or you know, if you're in a share house or something like that, like it's like not necessarily like you being able to sit down and play a game for 3 or 4 hours during peak time or whatever, when there's other people that want to do other things, or instead of you going off into your PC room, like, you know, people are just doing that more naturally now. And the portal taps into that. The Switch taps into that too, right? People just game on their Switch, like if they're on their TV, and then that's the whole idea was that like, well, no, you can just take it off the TV. Somebody else can use the TV. You've got the handheld, right?
Yeah, well, I last time I was at the airport, I saw a Switch be put on a table in front of, like, parent put the Switch down, had one of the cases on it that had like a little stand come out the back.
Yep.
So it was just the screen, and 2 kids are sitting there at the airport just playing, like, I can't remember what they were playing, but they were playing a game together. And I'm like, this is probably what people are doing in their lounge rooms. Like, you know, like, oh, dad's got the footy on. He's like, I'm not changing this. Like, you're having a laugh if you're gonna put your game on the TV. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, exactly, right?
No, the game is on. And then they're like, well, we want to play. And then they just put that on the coffee table. Like right there on the coffee table.
It makes perfect sense. Like if you look at the history of like console gaming, like if you go back to like the 80s and the 90s, like when I grew up, like if, for example, like, you know, like we had a Nintendo and a Super Nintendo, right? And it's like we would go to like the video store and rent games, or you know, like, and that's how like you would try new games, right? But like, you know, back then, like there was no real internet, really, right? You just had like these big boxy TVs, and you know, but a lot of houses had a second TV, like either in your parents' room or some other spare room, And
Yeah.
so like we would, you know, like there'd be the main TV, like that would be a privilege to play a game on that TV, right?
Oh, definitely.
But then like, you know, people will be visiting or the parents were there, like they would watch the TV and you'd be like, okay, can we go play, take the Nintendo to your room and connect it there and play there? Like, all right, do it that.
Yeah.
Whereas now
Yeah.
it's like the Nintendo, you just play it on the Switch
So
screen,
you play
right?
it anywhere. Yeah.
Like it's like almost like you think about it, you go, yeah, okay, it makes sense. Like obviously
It does.
to come up with these ideas.
I think we are the outliers in terms of like, well, me more so than you because you do own a lot of handhelds. I only own the Switch, and that's exclusively for Smash. But I'm definitely the outlier in this regard because, you know, I'm a PC gamer. I don't even own a console besides the Switch. So
But if you were a PC gamer and you got like a Steam Deck or
absolutely.
a ROG Ally, you would find yourself going, because you work at your desk, you'd be like, I could be playing this game on my PC, but you could use Moonlight, stream it to your handheld, and your PC will be running the game at like, you know, whatever the native resolution of your handheld is. If it's the Steam Deck, it's 800p. If it's a ROG Ally,
There's
it's
nothing
1080p.
to the 4090.
The 4090 or the 4080 or even the 47 will eat it alive, and you can just
49's like oh.
Yeah,
I'm just sorry for the audio listeners. I'm just raising my like pointer finger as you would do like a curl. Like if the 4090 was having to curl the Steam Deck 800p resolution, it would be using one finger.
Yeah, it'll be like
No, it'd just be blowing it. It'd just be like
at 90
It'd be
hertz,
picking it
so
up.
90 FPS. So it would just be like barely breaking the sweat, right? But you know what I mean? Like I guarantee that you would be like, oh, this is cool. I can just change my location. And if that changing that location is just going to a different room and sitting on a more comfortable couch or something like that, that's
major for us though, because we live in and one of the downsides of this job is loneliness and sitting in the same room. And I'm not even kidding. I changed the orientation of the room that I'm recording in right now because I was tired of looking at that wall.
Yep.
That's not the wall that I'm looking at now is no different color.
Yeah,
it's exactly the same. I'm like, no, I think I want the window on this side of me now.
It's a hermetic life, which is why we kind of like enjoy the hectic sort of events like Computex and CES because you get it's like you go from 0 to 1,000, right? Like it's out of the you know, the frying or the fridge into like just like a
out of the frying pan and into the fryer.
Yeah.
No, into the fire. Sorry.
Exactly. Yeah, just like it is like going from one extreme to the other, and it's fun. So this Sony new handheld, like, is reported by Bloomberg, and it's citing like notable sources, but like it is apparently early in development, so which that could mean that it's maybe 4 or 5 years out from actually coming out, which, you know, is what it is, and that would mean that PS5 level visuals is probably attainable. But it also means that Sony is looking seriously at the handheld market as an additional revenue stream, because what we know is that there has been no console that has sold more, you know, traditional console that has sold more units than the PlayStation 2. And the PlayStation 2 is now, 25 years old or something like that? So that traditional console market isn't growing. And so we know that they've expanded into PC now. So, you know, Sony games, PlayStation games are on Steam and the Epic Game Store. If you want to play God of War, Last of Us, Uncharted, these games are available on PC and they're doing really well on PC, expanding their brand. So it's like, where else do they go? You know, and by that chart, like, you know, the original PSP was a massive seller, 76 million plus units sold. And
that's so mind-blowing to me.
And everybody's now getting into handhelds. It's like it's almost logical, right? But this also means that it's kind of like it makes it like riskier as well, because like if everybody's doing it now, like
who's going to do it the best?
Something's got to give, right? Somebody like you know, the cream rises to the top. You know, like
exactly.
So like we've, you know, I mean, Nintendo is its own thing, right? Like they had traditional consoles, they had handheld consoles, and now they've just got the one, and it's a behemoth, right? The Switch 2 is going to be a success regardless, I think.
Yeah, it's a proof of concept.
I think that the Switch 2 is almost like a Super Nintendo level guaranteed success, where it may not reach the heights of the original Switch, but it's not going to be a failure.
It'll be over 100 million units, I bet.
Yeah, lifetime.
Easily.
Yeah, I think so too. But like
Easily.
if you switch to the opposite end of that, you've got the PC gaming handheld market. The Steam Deck is kind of on its own. I'm working on my review at the moment. I think the biggest standout from that is the fact that Steam is the operating system, so it feels as much like a Nintendo Switch as it does a PC. Like it feels like an ecosystem. It feels like you're a part of Valve's Steam, right? Like, and that's also a weakness, right? Which means you cannot just like fire up Game Pass or other launchers or BattleNet stuff like easily. Like you can, because it's not locked down. So it's not like a Switch in terms of like you can like shut down into desktop mode and run any Linux app that you want, right? Like it's not locked down at all. But that feels different. But then you've got Asus, Lenovo, MSI, Zotac. We saw like other companies, or XPG, like all these other companies like developing traditional
Handhelds,
Windows gaming handhelds, right? I like the ROG Ally and Legion Go and all these others. And they're apparently doing well too. But they're very, they feel almost still prototypey because of Windows not being native, sort of like, it's not an operating system designed for that. So like Microsoft still has a lot of work to actually, like it should just boot up into like an Xbox shell or like a PC gaming shell, or everybody has to have their own overlays, and so it's just a little bit bloated in terms of overhead, which is par for the course with Windows, right?
Yeah.
So now you've got Xbox developing a handheld. Now Xbox developing a handheld is interesting because they're not going to go the Nintendo route or even the PlayStation route and have their own operating system. It's going to be a PC because all their games are
definitely.
on PC.
It'll be x86 based.
Yeah, and it's going to be a PC. And so now you've got them creating one, and they've got the marketing muscle to make that more well known than even the the ROG Allies and the Legion Goes of the world.
Do you think we'll see an Xbox handheld? And we'll get off this topic after we wrap this line of questioning up. Do you think we'll see an Xbox handheld before we'll see a PlayStation handheld?
I think the Xbox handheld is
further along development.
I think there's prototypes already. I think they've already got they're already working on like a custom like a revamped Xbox app that are built into.
I did that story I think it was earlier this week where I can't remember his name. Is the Microsoft the CEO of the gaming division of Xbox.
Phil Spencer.
Yeah, Phil Spencer, yes. He said it's still a few years away, but they are actively evaluating the gaming handheld market and making changes. Like apparently they have a if I'm remembering correctly, they have a team, and I'm sure like Sony and like I'm sure Nintendo as well. They have an internal team that is like testing different variations of a handheld and probing the market, and then like executives and engineers sit down with them. It's like, well, what do you want out of a handheld? Like you know what I mean?
I think like I'm hoping that the Microsoft handheld team is very similar to how the original Xbox kind of came about, which was
every third breaks.
It was called the Direct Xbox. That was its code name, because it was essentially like for the first however long it was in development was essentially just a PC, right? And that was their goal.
It was off the shelf components.
Yeah, it was just to make a PC into a console, and that's what they were doing. And I think right now they're basically doing the same thing with gaming handhelds, like looking at the ROG Allies, testing with those chips that are already out there, the Ryzen Z1 Extreme and even the next gen ones that are out next year. But I think they're just waiting for a like Valve as well, which leads into our quick story on like the Steam Deck 2. Valve said, yes, we're working on it already, but we're just waiting. We need a generational leap. They're like, me comparing the Steam Deck to a Switch is because they know what it feels like to play with the Steam. They know it feels like its own console. So they don't want it. They don't want to just do yearly updates or biannual updates. Like, like the ROG Ally will have the ROG Ally 2. They've already done a refresh. MSI is doing a refresh of theirs. Like, they're treating them like laptops or like every other piece of PC hardware. Whereas Valve is like, no, we're going to do a Steam Deck 2 as soon as we get a generational leap at the same power level. Yeah. And Microsoft is probably
waiting for
the same wavelength, right? Because if they release an Xbox gaming handheld, it has to feel like its own thing. It can't just be, it's just as powerful as the ROG Ally. But it's just like an Xbox skinned version. Like it needs to be something.
Yeah. I really hope it doesn't look like that. Like the Steam Deck 2. Is that what it's meant to look like? There's no way. We can't do that.
That's the white Steam Deck.
Dude, what is that?
The Steam Deck, that's how the Steam Deck looks.
I don't think I've ever held one in my hand, and I think I may have forgotten what it looks like.
It feels weird, right? The fact that
it looks dumb.
The like the D-pad and the sticks and the buttons look too high. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
It actually
how the hell am I meant to hold that?
That's how it works. Like you'll be surprised. It's super comfortable, and the weight distribution, that's how it's designed, because it's not as light as a Switch. It's chunkier, it's bigger and heavier, but the weight distribution and the fact that the buttons are like that means it can sit on your lap a lot easier, or you can hold it up and like don't knock it until you try it.
Fair enough. I just think the design looks whack. Yeah. But anyway, we should move it along to the next story here. Let's talk 500 hertz refresh rate OLEDs. For those that don't know, there are pretty much two companies that make OLED. You've got Samsung, which makes the QD quantum dot organic light emitting diodes, or OLED, and then you have WOLED, which is I'm actually not sure what the W stands for, but this is LG's version of the technology, and it's WO. What does the W stand for?
I forget.
Is it wide?
But like it's just like a.
It's not wide, or is it the W the shape of the subpixel layout?
Yeah, it's
white. That's it. Yeah.
Yep.
White organic light emitting diode. And now we have a new story, which is right in front of CES 2025, which we will both be attending. So I'm sure this display or a version of this display will be showcased at CES in Vegas. And look, we're hitting the 500 hertz mark now, Kosta. This is
cool, but like it's not like as massive as a jump as because like there are 480 hertz displays. They've
I've used one.
480. So like going from 480 to 500, but it's like one of those things, right? Like where as soon as you cross a threshold, it just feels more significant.
Yeah. So I think the PG, is it the PG2? Nope, that's not it. Oh yes, it is. That is it. Actually, I've reviewed that one. This is the Asus PG27AQDP, is a 1440p 480 hertz gaming monitor, and I'm guessing this 500 hertz panel. I wonder why they went to 500 hertz and not 540. Like, wouldn't have you gone up?
I think it just comes down to being able to hit that refresh rate is just impressive in and of itself, right? Like the fact that they got to 480 is insane, and getting to 500 is also insane. I think like pushing above like 500, like what's the fastest LCD display?
Be 1,000, wouldn't it? I think that it'd be a VA panel, and I'm pretty sure it'd be 1,000.
Yeah, so there's 540 hertz. Asus has a 24-inch monitor with a 540 hertz display.
Yeah, I think I've reviewed that one as well.
and those were kind of like the fastest ever, right? It's like 540 hertz refresh rate. I think it just gets like it is so difficult to get that fast
Yeah,
refresh rate.
this thing was ridiculous. The Asus ROG Swift Pro PG248QP. This
Right.
like my headline for this is frames, and more frames. that is all this thing was able to do. This felt like and I stole this from you, but a Halo product. Like, who the hell is going to buy this thing? This is so unnecessarily. I'm not saying like the refresh rate is too much. I'm saying that the viewing, like the concessions you make to hit this, to get this 540 hertz refresh rate was extreme in the instance of this monitor. Like the viewing angles for this thing, Costa, if I wasn't looking at you like this and I went like this, like just slowly move. You couldn't even see. Like you had to be sitting directly in front of this thing. Or like if someone walked into your room and went, "Oh, what game are you playing?" They wouldn't be able to tell what game you're playing until they sat dead in front of it. Like it was funny. Oh, sorry, this is a TN panel.
TN, which is like the lowest. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like TN panels, you can get super fast because of that. And one of the bad things about TN panels is viewing angles, right? And color accuracy.
Yeah, it looked washed. The only thing that was
good
impressive, the refresh rate. And if we can hit 500 and
like
500 hertz
maybe
on an OLED though.
Imagine, that's right. And let's say like LG comes out with their answer to it at CES as well, and they do 540 or whatever it is. But like, it is impressive, and to be honest, like it's awesome news because it just cements OLED as the way forward, right? Because everybody now is also trying to develop cheaper versions of OLED panels.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we get to the point where it's like, oh, what have you got? Oh, you got the entry level 120 hertz display, right? Which is like perfectly fine, let's be honest, for like 99% of the time, right? But, then you've got your more premium ones, the 240s, and then you can have the 500, and then, who knows if they can push all the way up to like 1,000 and you might be wondering like, what's the point of that? But I mean, this is clearly going to be a competitive esports sort of like, competitive gaming display. It's 27 inches, apparently, this panel, and it's 1440p. And it's QD OLED 500 hertz. So if you're looking at that 1440p 27 inch, which is still a very good pixel density at that size, right? 1440p at 27 inches.
Yeah, that's still good. That's good. What is that? At 111? Is it 111? QHD PPI 27 inch. I think it's 111. No, 109. 109.
Yeah.
109. Yeah, that's fine. That's great. Anything below 100 is like, well, like things start to look like Minecraft, and it's upsetting. It is though. Come on, like, what's going on?
So like, if you're not playing Counter-Strike, then this is not the display for you.
I think we're also going to, just a little bit of a prediction for CES. If we're getting a 1440p 500 hertz OLED panel, presumably with 0.03 ms response time, and all the other bells and whistles.
Third gen.
I believe that we'll see a 4K variant at 360 minimum.
Yeah, that's where we get into.
Don't you think?
We got 4K 240 now.
Yeah, but like if this is going up, if 1440p is going to 500.
Yeah, I think so.
4K's got to go to 360 from 240. They can't go from 240 to 300. That's like, no one's going to upgrade that. No, that's not even what, like, I haven't even reviewed those monitors yet. And I'm already in my head, like, well, if you own a 240, like say you own the MSI 321 URX or whatever, you're never going to upgrade. Like if you're even if you're an enthusiast, like I need the best of the best of the best, it's like you're going to upgrade for like 60 hertz.
Yeah, there's no need.
No, there's no need.
And
it needs to go to 360.
I don't think you're meant to even upgrade. Like if you got that display, like keep it for the next couple of generations. I mean, what's the point of upgrading?
Yeah, but if you need the best.
Yeah, then you go like super ultra wide or something like that. Like you mix it up.
But that's not the best. That's a step back. Unless you're building like a racing sim. This thing is insane.
They need to do like the 4K ultra wides, like
They need to,
2160p,
yeah.
like 2160p instead of 1440p. Instead, like they need to step up from 3440 by 1400 of the 1440p ultra wides to 4K ultra wides.
My main issue is if you've got a 32:9 ultra wide.
That's insane. I think 21:9 is my limit. Like I think 32:9.
If you got 21:9, PPI over, let's say 34 inches. I just want to find the PPI for that.
Yeah, it's 3820 by 1600p. That's the
that's
it's actually
what you want.
That's what you want, right? Which is essentially like a 4K screen, just like in letterbox mode.
Yes.
So it's actually less pixels and more. So it's actually like at that size is equivalent to like a 4K display.
Screenshot this, what I'm looking at right here, which is it's pretty much a chart with all of the pixel density for all of the sizes and aspect ratios. But yeah, screenshot that and put it on the video so people can see it. So an ultra wide 3440 by 1440 at 34 inches is 110 PPI, and for comparison's sake, a 27-inch 1440p monitor is 109. So yeah, you get one more.
It's essentially the same.
It's essentially the same, but if you go to 39-inch, which is funnily enough a monitor that we're going to be talking about at the end of this episode, it is Acer's Predator X39. It's the exact same spec as this, 3440 by 1440, but across 39 inches, you get 95 PPI. And that was my main complaint with this monitor. Not to
should have went to 1600p. Yep.
It should have gone. Yeah, it should have gone up. We needed an increase in resolution because stuff was just looking tragic out there. Like it was not good. Look, and for comparison's sake, that is the same PPI as. Hold on. That's pretty much the same PPI as a 24-inch 1080p monitor at 92, which has 92 PPI. So your pixel density is like
pixel density is kind of like everything. It's like an important
100%. Look, 27-inch 4K monitor PPI at 163, dude. That's the biggest thing there.
Which one's that? Sorry, the
27 inches 4K.
Yeah, I had a 27-inch 4K display. It's just insane.
Everything's tiny.
Yeah. You have to like increase the
scaling.
Yeah, I mean, you have to increase the scaling for any 4K display.
Yeah, pretty much, eh?
Unless you're like one of those psychos that has like the tiny text and icons. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, dude, that guy's, he's going to hurt his eyes. He's going to hurt himself. Yeah, so look, 500 hertz at 1440p. I expect we'll see at CES this display on, being showcased, and we'll probably also get a 4K 360 variant if I was to give a professional opinion on. Given that we're moving in this direction, I'm sure that there is going to be some other variation, but I am more excited for what you were saying. Like I want to see 34-inch ultra wides move above 1440p to 4K. And
yeah, I used to have one that I busted it. Like, so it was IPS panel, but it was so good. It was an MSI one. I think it was like the 38-inch, but it was 3820, the 4K by 1600p.
Yeah, see, that's perfect.
And I was like, this is the best. And it was IPS, so it was really good for productivity, right? So obviously it was good for gaming, but obviously you just miss out on the OLED contrast levels and stuff like that.
And the response time,
the response time. But it was still an amazing display, and and then I was just upset because I looked and I'm like, everybody's just doing 34 by 1440 ultra wides now.
Yeah,
like it's just
we want an increase in resolution, guys.
I get why.
Well, brands, please,
it comes down because they're all targeting, what GPUs are capable of rendering, and 4K is not easy.
Yeah, neither is 4K across 34 inches with that kind of pixel.
Exactly.
Well, what we're asking for is, kind of crazy in a way. I'm like, if I could really just spawn my ideal ultra wide, it would be 4K at 240, I reckon.
Yeah, and mine will be that 38-inch ultra wide.
I want 4K resolution in a 34-inch shell at 240. I know. I want it to be OLED, and I want it to have 0.03. It's like, well, I also want it to have 90-watt PD charging, and I want it right under the monitor so I can charge my phone.
Yeah.
But let's move it along here. We have some Ubisoft news that we should talk about that I think is funny and worth discussing. This story is going viral right now. I mean, feel like anything Ubisoft touches.
Like, hey? This is I read the headline, but like if this is true, that's just hilarious.
This is straight from Insider Gaming. So that, and for those that don't know, Insider Gaming is
Tom Henderson, I think.
Tom Henderson, he is a very renowned, like if you were to check out like Gaming Leaks subreddit, they list Tom Henderson's leaks as extremely reliable. Like this is usually if he's posting something about a game, more than likely it is very true. And so what has happened is a quick summary of Ubisoft's, we'll just go ahead and say it's downfall. There was a bunch of controversy surrounding the artistic choices of Assassin's Creed Shadows that resulted in the game being delayed until next year, which I'm pretty sure is February from memory. And then we got a bunch of really bad reviews for Star Wars Outlaws. Ubisoft even internally admitted it didn't reach sales expectations. So this has just been speed bump after speed bump after speed bump for Ubisoft. And now we have a new story coming out, and what Mr. Henderson is reporting here, which I'm pretty sure, I just want to make sure I get this right. So he's hearing from internal Ubisoft sources. Oh my God. Hold on, wait. Sorry, I'm just making sure that I get this right because I don't want to. Is it from Henderson or is this from another? Where is my source on this? Apologies.
Okay, so
did I not link it in?
Ubisoft Insider Fandom Pulse. What?
I must not have linked it in.
No, there is a tech power up source there, and then that links to Star Wars fan site. Oh no, that's something else. Yeah, the rumor comes from Fandom Pulse, but it's citing Ubisoft insiders. Okay. So I don't think it is Inside Gaming. So we'll.
My bad. Yes, apologies I retract that.
Tommy H.
Yes. I think actually the reason I got confused on that is because I have another Ubisoft story here. Yes, sorry. This is where I'm getting Tom Henderson's from. Is their new Animal Crossing style game. Because I wrote those Ubisoft stories back to back. So yes, I apologize and withdraw my previous statements about that. What was that? Sorry,
you apologize to Ubisoft.
I will never. There's a few things I'll do, but I'm not going to do that. No, so yes, back to what Ubisoft is reportedly saying internally. So this is sourced from Fandom Pulse Substack, which quotes insiders reportedly at Ubisoft, along with other, in quotation marks, other companies. They don't like SteamDB, Steam Charts, these tools that utilize Steam's API and provide valuable data to the public about the performance of games. And for those that don't know, Steam Charts and SteamDB are commonly used by gamers to see how many gamers are playing the game.
They've been weaponized, I think, as well, by bad actors. Like to be honest, like I understand, but like, you know, if a popular game does poorly, or like, you know, they're just being used as like, oh, look at this, it's a complete failure. Look at this, it's abysmal. Look at this, it's that. Like it's like they have been weaponized to an extent by like people, but it is a super valuable tool for being able to gauge the popularity of titles, because it doesn't really tell you the full story, but it is indicative of, like when a game is blowing up on Steam, like, if it's like, especially if it's like an indie title and you have a look in the Steam charts, you're like, wow, there's a lot of people playing this. It is like validation to be able to go, like, is this game popular? Like you say, you're not relying on just, the current top seller lists on Steam or something like that to see what's popular or not.
Absolutely. And according to these reports, the Ubisoft insiders, they want Steam to remove access of their API for these public tools. So SteamDB would no longer exist and Steam charts no longer exist. And according to these insiders, this is in response to Star Wars Outlaws flopping. Now, you can take all of this information with a grain of salt because it is reported at the moment. So this is rumors. It kind of falls in line for me personally with how they would be viewing these kind of stats, because if you look at Star Wars Outlaws, their stats, it's not making them look great. So I would, if I was Ubisoft, I wouldn't want to be looking at that either. Other companies is interesting. I wonder who else.
I think it makes sense because, like, if you look at Concord, even like the Sony game, right? So we didn't get official PlayStation numbers. We got like rumors that that they made $1 million or something like that total, or something like that, or whatever it was. And that's one of the biggest flops of the year, right? And ever. Even for Warner Brothers, they had Suicide Squad kill the Justice League at the very beginning of the year, which flopped hard as well. And then Concord came around, and the thing is that, like, the only of the moment data that people had to go on was the Steam numbers, right? And Steam isn't the only platform, right? These games were on Xbox, they were on PlayStation, and they're also on the Epic Game Store, but the Steam is the dominant PC gaming platform at the moment. Hundreds of millions of people on there gaming with it. So, like, it is, and so, like, the Steam chart numbers, which give you concurrent players and peak concurrent players, it just means who's playing, everybody playing the game at that moment. Like, so if a game gets 100,000 concurrent players, that's a massive success. That usually means that it's sold in excess of 1 million copies on Steam or on PC.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
Because we don't get the specific, like the Steam charts or the API doesn't give specific like sales numbers or sales figures. That's something that, companies get from Valve on their own, right? And rightfully so, because it's like a platform and that's the agreement that they have. But, other companies would probably mean publicly traded companies, right? You got Ubisoft, you've probably got Sony, you may not have Sony, like, who knows? But you probably could have other companies that are beholden to investors or shareholders, and they don't want headlines saying nobody's playing their game. Check out these Steam numbers. And that could be the very reason why. Yeah. Oh, no.
That's what they should do. I think this whole
this would just come down to it probably just comes down to they just don't want this information out there for their investors to see.
No, it's like Ubisoft, sorry.
And you can't fudge the numbers either.
It's like YouTube removing the dislike button.
Yes.
Like, we're worried about the feelings of that's the market. That's literally, if you make a crappy video and the market decides it's a crappy video, it's a crappy video. That's like, to hide the numbers it's only nefarious to me. It's only like, it should be, if you're going to put out a product, especially if the company is a publicly traded company, and also if you were just thinking from the perspective of the gamer side, we should be able to tell if other people are playing this game. It shouldn't be behind this
especially for multiplayer games, right?
Absolutely. This invisible wall of ambiguity of I've kind of heard about, the new Dragon Age Veilguard. Like, what's next? Do we remove reviews because they hurt people's feelings?
No, obviously not. And I'm not advocating. I wouldn't.
Yeah, I know you're not. I'm just saying.
I wouldn't take that position that this is something that should be removed. But I can understand where they're coming from because it's the only platform that does it, right? And I think every platform should do it. I think we should get there should be an API that gives us these figures for the PlayStation Network,
I completely
for the Xbox
agree.
Network, for the GeForce Now cloud gaming, we should get these numbers. We should be getting these numbers for these statistics or things should be available to see that.
I completely agree. I also think that it is a slightly double-edged sword. And even though I did say like the marker is essentially the be all and end all, is that if you do see, it depends on the way that the UI is set up, but like if all of the games that are the most popular games are always front and center, we could end up into a bit of an echo chamber kind of thing where gamers are only playing the most popular games.
That's essentially where we are, though.
Yeah.
Because one of the problems...
Steam isn't set up, at least if you look at Steam is not set up in that way at all at the moment. It's set up more like a directory. Like, if anything, it's more like an encyclopedia for games rather than it be... rather than it feel like a marketplace, if you know what I mean. Like, you've got, like, all of the categories on the side. You can customize and filter your search. It really does feel... Yeah, more like a directory than like, oh, I'm browsing like, you know, the Nintendo eShop or the PlayStation Plus, like where it's more tiles. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I know. And I think the latest Steam design is probably the best out of all of them. But it's something that we've all gotten used to, right? Because this is like the very first, right? This is the OG, and Steam's been around for 20 years now as a storefront, whereas like everything else is kind of like being redesigned and new layouts and all done and whatever case. And you know, I mean, the tile thing works as well. I mean, Steam does it for like their big Steam sale, which is on now, and but Steam is kind of like its own thing, right? Like, because it's also the platform for where Dota 2 blew up. It's the platform where Counter-Strike blew up. It's, you know, it's basically like a thing where Counter-Strike players log in and just play that. And
Yep. I completely agree.
So that's
with that.
why the API is kind of like valuable, because, you know, like it's also like it's a competitive thing, right? Like you go to Steam charts or SteamDB and you see what's the most, who's like, oh, it's broken the record for most concurrent players, you know, like,
yeah, that's
because
awesome.
more people are jumping onto Steam and there's more games. It's like Steam feels like it's growing because we're seeing those numbers grow as well, those concurrent players and things like that.
Yeah.
So like when a game like Star Wars Outlaws launches on Steam and it has like 1,000 concurrent players, which is what, it sold 10,000 copies on Steam, which is what, peanuts for a company as large as Ubisoft, right? If it was me or you that had 1,000 people playing our $50 game, we would be over the moon,
be doing
right?
this podcast, to tell you that much.
It would be a minor success for us, right? But for a big company like that, that's like dead in the water. That's like what? Yeah. I mean, what was Concord, right? Like 600 or something like that?
Oh, I think like 5 people played it, and those 5 people passed a copy around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even 5 individual copies. It's the same copy being handed around. Let's keep it more gaming, but we got to move it along here.
Yes.
I did want to just quickly go over this this other Ubisoft story, because I was talking about Mr. Henderson. So we should talk about this. I think it's interesting. Maybe we'll spend just 5 minutes on it. A new report from Insider Gaming, getting it right here. Mr. Henderson has said that Ubisoft is working on a new Minecraft style / Animal Crossing style title, codenamed Altera. It's been in development for approximately 18 months, and it was born out of a cancellation of another game that also uses voxel creation.
Voxel,
and for those,
cool. Yeah.
What was that? Sorry.
Yeah, voxel, which is basically just like using, you know, the Minecraft thing is where it's just like a 3D object is just a combination of cubes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I've got here in my article, voxel creation, the process of building 3D models using 3D pixels or cubes. So yeah, pretty much the same thing. This is interesting. Mr. Henderson. It sounds like Mr. Anderson, like from the Matrix. I'm like, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Henderson says the rumored title is described as a social simulator that allows players to live on an island on which they can build structures, gather materials, and interact with NPCs called matterlings. And these matterlings, Insider Gaming was able to get some images of them, and they kind of look like Funko Pops, which I think are funny because they look dumb.
Funko Pops are the most. It's the worst, almost like the worst thing ever, just based on like the amount of licenses that they've gotten. Because like if you look at like if you walked into a store and it was like a wall of Funko Pops, and you see like every franchise, every pop culture thing that's ever been made, that like everything you love is there, because there's thousands of them, right? There's like every movie, every Marvel thing, every Star Wars thing, every like random pop star or every random comic or anime or whatever it is has its own Funko Pop, and they all look shit.
Yeah, they. All right.
And then you add all that up.
Jesus, like, anyone else feel that venom through?
To quote Jeff Goldblum, to quote Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, that's one big pile of shit.
Yeah, that is. All right, I agree. And apparently these Maddelings look a lot like Funko Pop characters. Funnily enough. But this is an interesting, I think this is an interesting style of game that Ubisoft is developing. It's currently under development at Ubisoft Montreal. It's being headed by, this doesn't really mean much to me, but it might mean something to you. It's being headed by creative director Patrick Redding, who was the previous creative director of Gotham Knights. Did you ever play that?
Jesus.
Oh, that's no good.
Okay, so Gotham Knights, right?
Oh god.
Okay, so like,
wait, let me sit down.
So Gotham Knights warned us about what Suicide Squad was going to be, right? So Warner Brothers had, Rocksteady developed the Batman Arkham trilogy of games, some of the best comic book video games ever made. If you haven't played, if you just play Arkham City, that's enough to give you a taste of what a good comic book game with open world design that nails the character and the world feels like. And then, Rocksteady decided to spin off, and it took them a decade to make Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, which was a looter shooter online PvPvPe, Destiny style. Like, oh, now you found a shotgun that gives you +2 DPS versus the one that you've got now, and it's
That's
numbers
crazy.
numbers for the sake of numbers, and where even if it means that even if there's good level design, it's buried in the sea of layers of just bullshit, really. So Gotham Knights was like an offshoot studio that Warner Brothers had that developed one of the offshoot Batman Arkham games that I enjoyed. It was Batman Arkham Origins, which was like a prequel. It was not as good as the Rocksteady games, but it was still like, it was just basically like a cash-in sort of thing. Like, let's just do a spin-off or a prequel, and it's the same game really. It does nothing new, but it's still good mechanics. So then that team went on to make Gotham Knights. Now Gotham Knights was essentially like this, modern sort of like, Ubisoft style, like where let's look at the trends, right? It's going to be co-op, it's going to be up to multiple players. It's going to be a open world game. It's going to have loot, and you're going to choose from different characters like Robin and Nightwing. There's no Batman. Batman is dead. Batman dies in like an
that's
intro
cool.
cutscene.
Gotham without Batman.
That's bold. And so then, but then the actual gameplay was shockingly terrible. The open world activities was just an open world filled with icons. Like, imagine the most soulless open world game where it's just a map full of icons, and you go there and it's this activity, and then you go to the next one. Oh, it's this activity.
Oh.
And then you go back to base, and then you get like, okay, now you've got all these items, and then you got this convoluted crafting system, and then like you've lost sight of what a superhero game is, right? Like, is a superhero game you fighting enemies and they drop green orbs? Let me actually bring up my review.
But you reviewed it.
I savaged it, yeah. And it's actually quite funny because I put like, all right, the open world of Gotham. Criminals you dispatch spit out glowing magnifying glass icons when they don't die, because the Bat family doesn't kill anybody, just like Batman. These literal magnifying glass icons you collect are clues that come to life. So then you take these clues, which is just a number of clues that you're collecting, back to your home base at the end of each night. You use the back computer to blend the clues you've collected to create another list of, how I put it, premeditated crime juice to populate Gotham with more icons for you to go out and complete. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it breaks down what should be an immersive experience into pretend crap, right? So if you
have
take
to
out
get
enemies,
it's fetch quests. You have to literally get your own and create your own. It takes
it's all these games that are taking elements of like Diablo and all these action RPGs, and just thinking that the fact that you just level up is enough of a mechanic.
Yeah,
so if you're Batman and you're solving crimes in a game, if I told you that this is how the Batman game is, so when you beat enemies, you're not interrogating them, you're not doing any investigation. So all you're doing is like you're just beating down waves of enemies, and each enemy drops these little orbs for you to collect. And when you've got 100 orbs, you take it to your base, and then it gives you a location of a crime. And when you go to that crime, you stop the crime. It's like, what is this crap, right?
Yeah,
like
this is bland.
It's soulless.
Yeah.
It's like what happens in the Arkham games. You would interrogate the criminals. They would give you a clue. You go down and that's the next part of the mission. You use your bat vision. You solve the mystery. Like, the Witcher.
You feel like a detective.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So me, that paragraph is basically telling you that that's all you need to know. Like, it doesn't get
tragic. Well, and this guy that's made the Gotham Knight games is making the new Ubisoft one. So
yeah. So my expectations are very low.
Well, there you have it, folks. We'll keep it in the same vein as games, and we are getting a little strapped for time because we do have to hit the back half of this episode where we will be discussing review products. But before we do that, let's talk FromSoftware, Sony, Katakawa. This is eventuating into. I reckon they're going to buy him, Kosta.
It's kind of sounding like it.
The more that I read into it, the more that it makes sense. So we covered last week that Sony were officially engaged in purchasing discussions of Katakawa, which is the parent company of FromSoftware. And by no means is Katakawa just, the dad to FromSoftware. They have a lot of IP, and I'm talking a lot. And it's not in just the gaming industry. They cover a lot of. They have a lot of ownership in the anime market with over 1,000 IPs in this. And the more that you read into it, and if you think back to what Sony did in 2021, which was purchase Crunchyroll, which is the world's largest US anime distributor. They bought them for $1.2 billion. And then you look at Japan's anime industry doubled over 10 years and hit 19.5 billion in 2022. So that would be over 20 billion right now. So over 10 years.
So there's more to the story than Elden Ring 2.
100%. And a new article by Bloomberg kind of highlighted the catalog of what Katakawa can offer. And it just seems like an perfect. It even went as the author of the Bloomberg article even went as far to say that this is the most perfect deal for Sony. However, Katakawa knows its worth and does not want to sell, of its business to Sony. It wants Sony to buy all of it, which is totally fair enough.
May not have the money for that.
Yeah, I think Sony could find the money, but what's funny is that Katakawa, I'm pretty sure, is more valuable than Sony.
Really?
Katakawa net worth. We'll do that. Net assets. So, that's Australian dollars. 3.96 billion USD according to company's market cap, and then we'll do Sony Interactive and Entertainment. because
Or
they
even
would
just
be.
Sony. I mean, it's all under the same umbrella, but that's it. That's huge. So they're a massive company, right? So this is not just like Sony buying
Oh yeah, no.
like a development.
Sony is 116 billion, 116
Of course.
billion.
Yes, so it's not like Sony just
should be
buying
big.
like the studio, but like they're getting everything. But like, to be honest, like even just FromSoftware on its own would be huge for Sony.
Oh, 100%. I'm sure
Because-
that is one of the biggest aspects of
Even if you look at PC, right? Like Elden Ring was one of the biggest selling PC games.
yeah.
And Dark Souls does amazingly well on PC because these are like hardcore games that do really well on platforms like Steam as well. So like them buying from software would be huge. Now, like, you know, then it bolsters the PlayStation brand. Will they make those games exclusive to PC and PlayStation? Probably. Will
Probably.
Microsoft kick up a fuss and try and stop the acquisition? Maybe, because they did the same when they bought Activision. Is it the same size as Activision? No, not in terms of like the game studios that they're getting, but maybe overall with all the other assets, it could be pretty huge. But like if this is going ahead and it's looking it's going ahead, you know, PlayStation
I
fans.
think they'll purchase it all. I think this makes perfect sense for Sony just on the anime side and the manga side, which is huge in Japan. But look, Microsoft's in a position where they can just splash cash and buy as many and they're doing it right now. They're just scooping up publishers, and eventually there'll be hardly any good ones left, and they'll all be on Xbox. But funnily enough, like the Xbox is kind of like positioned itself that it doesn't really care. Like, okay, yeah, we'll release the games on PlayStation. Like, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, they're moving
Sony,
towards that.
hey?
Which is good because they're the first to do it, which to be honest, like, I mean, it needs to get there eventually. Like we've mentioned this, I've spoken about in the past, like this is the only industry where you've got these like very massive closed walled gardens.
Yeah.
Of like, you know, it's like, oh, if you're a console gamer, it's like, well, either you have to choose, right? Like you have to choose between a minimum of 3. Actually, like there's 4. Like if you're a gamer, you have to, like if you add PC into the mix, you have to choose between 4 different ecosystems, right?
Yeah.
And it's not feasible or viable to expect that a person will choose more than one. They shouldn't even be expected, right?
Yeah.
Because the money investment and this and that, it's like, why?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, there are many people that have a PlayStation and a PC or a Switch and a PC, which is just the way it goes. But like that shouldn't be the requirement.
I agree. And yeah, I think Katakawa and all of the following IP that is under the company's umbrella, I think it would be perfect fit for Sony. They need more first-party titles so they can consistently release new first-party games. Like we said to the lead up of the PlayStation 5 Pro, that there is hardly any first-party. There is no. I don't think there is a first-party game to pioneer the tech that is within it. Within the PlayStation 5 Pro, it is all old technology, all old games, some even PS4 games being upscaled
or
and
new
showcased
third-party
too.
games taking advantage of it.
Yeah,
like I think Dragon Age launched with a PS5 Pro patch, and
yeah,
a few other recent games like have been patched for it, which is good.
yeah.
But it's like one of those things where no, it's not like, you know, if it launched alongside GTA, the PS5 Pro would be seen as like the ultimate gaming machine.
Yeah, those days are done. Really. Okay, I've wrapped up what I needed to in terms of news. Is there anything? Oh, sorry, we actually need to do the thin iPhone. My bad. I'll just do this one real quick. We have been, I think in the past, I've discussed the potential of a new iPhone being released, and this would be a very cut down version of the current iPhone, the iPhone 16. And now we've got some more details out about it, and it is being teed up that this thing is real. And I'm very interested in what they decide to make concessions with, and I suppose what is left over is what they deem the most necessary aspects to create this product. What was that,
would be
sorry?
huge. Like if they call it the iPhone Air, like your story says, that would be huge. Like that name alone,
Absolutely. Yeah.
just
Nike
will be
Air.
something
Dude.
that we're like, oh, what's this? I want to get one of those.
Yeah, air, and then you pick it up and it feels like air. Okay, so Apple analyst Jeff Poo. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Okay, go ahead.
let's go with
Give
it.
give that a once over. Jeff Poo, P-U, not P-O-O. That would be rude. Yes, Apple analyst agreed with the rumored thickness of the new device, being 6 millimeters. Now, that sounds really thin, but what is it compared to? Okay, for perspective, Apple's latest iPhone 16 and 16 Plus measure at 7.80 millimeters thick, and the thinnest iPhone ever made was the iPhone 6 at 6.9 millimeters thick. This would just be 6. That is damn. Those differences sound like nothing. And they are, if you were measuring anything else besides like the thickness of a phone, I suppose. But when you hold that in your hand, it feels very different. Especially if you were to pick up even like an older generation iPhone, and then you're holding a new generation iPhone. You can say this with like pretty much any brand of smartphone. The thickness is something that you notice immediately with it. Or even like say if you were to pick up a Fold that's closed, you're like, God damn, or you feel it in your pockets. It's really quite thick. Now, according to a report from the information, the iPhone, this purported device is called the iPhone 17 Air, and prototypes are currently being tested, and they're between 5 millimeters and 6 millimeters thick. So we're even going thinner. Now, besides how that feels in the hands, this thickness, we'll call it a restriction that Apple is putting on the creation method of this device, is engineers are getting headaches about how they are going to fit in all of the necessary components to make this phone viable. Now, with the thickness reduction, there has to be concessions made into what can be inside of the device because it's thicker. We might have the same footprint in terms of size, but we don't have as much room inside of the device itself. So according to these reports, this device will only have one speaker. Interesting. Comparatively, the iPhone models currently have 2 speakers, one at the top, one at the bottom.
Like big deal. Like
big deal for me. Yeah, I agree.
Who's ever said like, oh man, yeah, listen to these speakers on my phone. Aren't they great?
Yeah, look, if you can get rid of the other speaker and have the single speaker louder, like I don't want to make it, I don't want, it's hard because like audio is so like specific in terms of need
just a single mono speaker is fine for a phone.
Yeah, look, if it's the same volume but this one speaker is better, like it's the equivalent of 2, that's fine. Like or it's slightly less, I would still be okay there, but I just don't want to be like, if I'm watching a TikTok on my phone, I don't want to have to be putting my phone to my ear to be able to hear it.
Volume, it'll just be like just single channel, you just cannot get. So like even like on any sort of device, doesn't matter how small it is. If you put 2 speakers there, what you can do is then you can just create like a enveloping sound where the stereo separation where it just feels like a stereo sound, right? So like even if you got like 2 speakers, like bookshelf speakers, like on either side of your TV, and you unplug one and you have left the other, like what immediately happens is that it goes from being sound in the room to directional audio coming from a very specific spot. So what will happen with a single speaker on the phone won't be an issue with volume or even like how the sound quality compared to other iPhones or whatever. They'll be able to hit volume in that very, very easily. What will happen is that immediately you'll just notice that the sound is coming from your phone. Like you'll be able to pinpoint the exact spot where your
the
speaker
source,
is.
yeah.
Because you know, like when you like if you got multiple phones with two speakers, sometimes you're like, oh, where's the speaker on this thing? You're like, oh, the speaker's there. Was it up there? Was it,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah, I hear you now.
It's
Yeah,
because the
yeah.
sound when you got two speakers, like it just fills more space immediately.
Yeah,
And that's what
yeah.
you sacrifice above anything else. Like
Yeah.
a single speaker it just means that you'll just be like, okay, it's coming from that.
Yeah, and which is
spot right
totally
there.
fine, I think, especially given in today's climate where, you know, people have AirPods, headphones, all that stuff. It's like,
Yeah,
well,
I
if
know.
you're, yeah,
If you're relying
it's a
on
bit
the
of a
quality
much
of
for
your phone
muchness.
speaker, yeah.
Other concessions that we're looking at is, moreover, the upcoming device is among the first iPhones, that's a quote, to use Apple's in-house 5G modem. Now, this is where performance heads will, I mean, you might get a nosebleed, but Apple's new in-house 5G modem falls short of Qualcomm's 5G chips in terms of peak speeds and connection reliability. However, they are more efficient in terms of energy. And if you're making an iPhone 7, if you're making an iPhone Air, which is thinner, that means smaller battery inside of it. Going to have to be really conscious in terms of how much power you're using. So this does make sense. However, Apple's 5G chips don't come with millimeter wave technology for 5G, which and don't quote me on this one, but if I remember my research into 5G when it was first being rolled out in Adelaide, millimeter wave technology enables I'm going to use an analogy here. If your connection to a 5G tower was 3 or 4 lanes on a road, and the speed of which the connection is the cars traveling on that road, millimeter wave technology would kick in specific areas where there was high congestion or high traffic. So let's say you were at like a football game or a cricket match where there's 10,000 people and all of their phones are connected to the local network, the local tower. The ones that are on 5G, millimeter wave technology would kick in and the road would suddenly have many more lanes on either side of it for those people with the appropriate devices. So they would have faster speeds, more reliability, etc., etc. I think, again, don't quote me on this, unfortunately, I can't be 100% certain on this, but millimeter wave technology was brought in to remedy the problems of 4G, which was tragic congestion in places like, you know, Computex, CES, the sporting events, all of that stuff where thousands of people were together and suddenly the internet doesn't work on anyone's phone or it's heaps slow. So this rumored device of iPhone 17 Air will use Apple's 5G chips that don't come with millimeter wave technology. So that's kind of interesting. And another problem that engineers are facing is there isn't enough room to fit a SIM card tray. And that is required to sell the device in China. And I would like to say here as well, right? You have to.
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
I think so. In Australia, yeah. I think that's a
not
thing.
really a thing here yet, is it? I mean,
Because
there
you
are
have to have
options.
the reason in China, and this sounds funny because it's the exact same reason here, I'm pretty sure, is you need to have your ID linked to your SIM card. You know what I mean? Or can you get eSIMs here? I'm not sure. I've always had a SIM card, so
Yes.
I'm not too sure on that one, but yeah, that wraps up the news section of this podcast. We will take a short break and get straight into the review section where Kosta will be talking about the Razer Barracuda X Chroma wireless gaming headset, and I will be and also, the Rapid Trigger Gaming magnetic keyboard. And then I'll wrap up the episode by giving a brief overview on Acer's X39 gaming monitor. All right.
Okay, the Razer Barracuda X Chroma. Now, gamers love their RGB, or at least the brands would make you think that they do. It's like, you know, it's almost like a cliche at this point where everything has RGB. But gaming headsets have all become wireless in recent years. There was a time not that long ago where it was almost like a 50-50 split. Either the headset was wired or it was wireless. If it was PC, it was over USB. And at that point, there were more options with RGB lighting. Now, with the shift to wireless gaming headsets, battery life becomes super important. And with that, RGB went the way of the Dodo, where basically companies removed RGB because it just meant you could have higher battery life. So what the Razer Barracuda X Chroma is essentially a Barracuda X wireless gaming headset, which is Razer's mid-tier gaming headset, where the non-RGB version is under $100 US. This one's a bit more expensive because it improves some of the features, and you've got RGB lighting in the form of Razer Chroma. So let's go through the specifications. So the Razer Barracuda X Chroma is a wireless gaming headset with 2.4 gigahertz wireless over low latency or Bluetooth. And it's compatible with PC, Mac, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, Steam Deck, and mobile devices running Android or iOS operating systems. The drivers or the audio technology is using Razer's Triforce 40mm drivers, and Razer Triforce is what they call their drivers. Essentially just means that they separate the bass, mids, and the high frequencies at the driver level, which for a headset is a very tiny little thing, and which is why 40mm is the diameter. The frequency response is pretty much standard for a for a mid-range wireless headset. You got 20 to 20 kilohertz. There is no noise cancellation or anything like that, and the microphone is a detachable Razer Hyperclear cardioid mic, unidirectional. They just, that Hyperclear is their branding, and the microphone frequency response is pretty standard, 100 to 10 kilohertz, and it supports surround on any sort of device that has surround or PC only, which which it has as well. It weighs at 285 grams, which anything under 300 grams is pretty lightweight for a gaming headset, so it is versatile and lightweight. And the big thing, of course, is the Chroma lighting, which it has 6 zones of lighting on each ear cup. And the battery life, now this is where we get into what does RGB add to a gaming headset. So without RGB, you're looking at, so that's turning it off and using the low latency 2.4 gigahertz connection for gaming, you're looking at 70 hours of battery life, which is huge for a gaming headset, which is where we're at now. But you turn on lighting, the RGB lighting, and that basically cuts in half to 35 hours. Now that it is a massive cut, but 35 hours used to be standard for wireless gaming headsets in terms of battery life, so it's not as bad as it sounds. That's actually almost a full week even of heavy gaming, really, for a lot of people. So it's pretty good. So looking at the actual overall design, it is a full plastic build, which is flexible. You got swivel ear cups that tilt, and it's the minimal modern design that we see across a lot of gaming headsets now. With an adjustable headband, the weight distribution is pretty good on it, and it's comfortable to wear. And the big thing, though, with the actual design is the versatility of it, being able to connect via USB or Bluetooth to basically any device. And with that, you've got on-ear controls, you've got the volume dial, mute button, power button, and a preset mode switcher on the left ear cup, which is important. This preset mode basically lets you switch between 4 different audio modes: game, movie, music, and custom, which the custom one being the one that you can actually customize. Now, that kind of can be a little bit confusing because all the controls are on the left ear cup, which is one of the, I think, a design issue. By having every single control on a single ear cup means it's like, okay, well, means there's a learning curve. Oh, that's a power, that's a mute, that's the preset switch, the volume dial obviously makes sense, but you got more than 2 different buttons on there. It's always confusing. I would have moved the one of the main control buttons to the right ear cup to make it less confusing, and included a physical control to turn the lights on and off. Weirdly, there isn't one. You have to use the app. And this is where we get to the Razer Barracuda X Chroma's versatility as being a headset for everything, not just PC, not just consoles, but mobile devices and handhelds as well. So this means that there is actually no Razer Synapse software support. So if you plug it into PC, the Razer Synapse software won't pick this up. Essentially what you've got now is Razer's mobile audio app for iOS and Android for all customization and configuration. Now, companies are moving to mobile apps for headsets that have Bluetooth functionality, which I agree with. I think it is really good because if you're gaming on a handheld or a PC, if you're using the headset on more than one device, being able to just bring up your phone to make changes is actually can be more intuitive than, but you do kind of want a native PC app, which is kind of like an expectation for a peripheral, especially from Razer, who has recently updated its Synapse software to be a lot better than what it was. It's actually really good now, even though it kind of looks the same. It doesn't take up much resources. It's not bloated anymore, and it's very intuitive and it's very powerful in terms of what it can do. So it's a lot better than it has been, but this headset doesn't support that. So the problem with this is that the Razer mobile audio app is limited, right? You basically have the four modes for choosing the different audio, which is quite limiting. So basically, you have 3 existing presets and a template for a custom presets, and that's it. But that just means that it just leans it to its plug and play. But also, it also means that the dedicated Chroma section. So on PC, if you've used Razer's dedicated Chroma app, it syncs to games. It's super powerful. This has 6 zones of lighting, but all you can really do is you don't have control over the 6 zones of lighting on each ear cup. You just have different presets that you can switch between, or you can customize just the color of like the basic static and breathing effects. So Razer deciding to go full RGB with their Barracuda X mid-range or affordable wireless gaming headset, and then adding an RGB version for people that want that like RGB, but then limiting the RGB controls just means it's another downside. And that really just comes down to the mobile app just being a little bit limited in what you can and can't do. But you obviously have controls over a few different other things, like like a do not disturb button to be able to block incoming calls when you're gaming. But that's pretty much it really, and it gives you like the battery readout and things like that. Okay, so the performance of the actual headset, the Razer Barracuda X Chroma's tuning is pretty balanced. Like, it's not overly bassy, it's not overly crisp on the high end for like first person shooters. Like gaming headsets that are tuned for competitive gaming are very crisp on the high end. They cut out the low end and they just kind of keep that mid-range detail and high range frequency just so you can just hear all of the sound, whereas as opposed to it being fully immersive with like deep bass and like warm sounds and like not overly harsh sort of like things that are a more cinematic sound. And I prefer that because I prefer those sort of more immersive games. But you get a clean, detailed mid-range, a soft high end. So it is like a really nice, clean sound. And testing it, I tested with the on PC as well as the Steam Deck OLED. Tested various games, Hades, Red Dead Redemption, a few other ones. And the game audio preset is actually not the one to choose, which is what another confusing thing, because the game audio preset is essentially the first-person shooter mode, which means you remove the bass and you just put all of the focus on the high range frequencies. So, first person shooters, so you can hear the gunshots, you can hear footsteps, you can hear characters sliding around the map or whatever it is. That's the game mode is essentially the FPS mode. So if you're playing anything that isn't an FPS, and even then, like I'm okay not using those modes for FPSs. I would prefer to be immersed and have deep bass when there's an explosion that goes off, because I'm not going to be in the top of the ladder, but that's just me personally. So if you're using any, if you're playing any game really, you're better off using the music mode or the movie preset. The music preset is really just balanced, and that's kind of like a neutral sound. And if you go to movie mode, then you get the sort of like punchier low end and the more impactful cinematic sound. But the good thing is that the mid-range detail, and mid-range detail is where music sits, where most detail in terms of like soundtracks and like sound effects and like the nuance of like sound design kind of like sits in that mid-range. It is pretty exceptional here. Like it punches above its weight, which means that like it's kind of like weird that like these aren't like bass machines, these headsets. It's just like a really dynamic sort of like mid-range, and it does really well for that. The only problem is that like the preset thing is just, it's as simple as it is. Game, movie, music, custom is that if you out of the box, most people will go game, and if you play a bunch of games, you'll be like, this headset is pretty crummy, right? Like, where's the bass? Where's the detail? And then you switch to movie, you're like, oh, there it is. Now it's good. And so that is kind of confusing. The microphone quality is pretty much standard for like the $100 price range, which means that it's okay for jumping into chat. It's not broadcast quality. It's nowhere near broadcast quality, and there isn't any sort of like low-end detail. So you do end up sounding tinny. So it's kind of like just your entry-level or basic microphone sound quality for a wireless gaming headset, because they have to dedicate bandwidth to voice, and a lot of headset makers just keep it at that sort of basic level. Okay, so wrapping this up, like, is it good? Yeah, like the price is good, and it is recommended. Like, you've got a versatile wireless and Bluetooth headset here. Like it is compatible with heaps of devices. It is lightweight. It is comfortable to wear, and you have good sound with exceptional mid-range detail when you're not using the game mode. Surprise, which is just weird to have to say that. And the actual RGB, the fact that you can't control all the 6 zones is a disappointment, but the actual RGB is vibrant. It actually does look cool, and the actual default modes of like, the rainbow effect or like the gradient effects that they have are really cool, and it does actually come across when you wear them. Okay, so the negatives: the low end bass detail lacks punch, so they're not the bassiest headset out there. You can improve that with a custom preset, but it's up to you to do that, which means out of the box you're not getting that unless you do that. Now, you've got limited audio presets and customization. You've only got one custom preset to work from, so that's a downside. There is no noise cancellation, which is another downside, because that's becoming a thing for gaming headsets now, especially wireless versatile ones with Bluetooth. So if you're wearing this when you're out connected to a Bluetooth device, you're going to get sound bleed, which means other people will be able to hear what you're listening to, and you're not going to get noise cancellation. You're just going to get the passive noise cancellation from the closed back design. And the final con is that the Razer audio app lacks any sort of spatial audio or surround, which I thought they would include. So it's a very basic audio app. So there's no Synapse support on PC and stuff like that. So overall, it actually is quite a good. The Barracuda X is like a versatile headset. I'm pointing out and highlighting these negatives just to, for Razer to pick up the game, really, because having only 4 options for the audio preset mode and a dedicated preset button is just a little bit limited, I think. But there is good sound to be had. And so, it scores like an 85%. And they are recommended if you are somebody that wants bright lights and detailed sound. So that's the recommendation. If you don't care about RGB lighting on a gaming headset, look elsewhere, because there are other options. But if you go like, okay, cool, I actually want to be gaming with RGB on my ear cups, then go for it.
Is that about all you have on that?
Yep.
That sounds good. Look, this headset sounds... I'm just trying to think of... It is... It's very Razer. That's what I feel like. After reading the review and listening to you discuss it, it feels very... Like, it has those Razer problems. And from the time that I was reviewing gaming headsets and microphones and all of that kind of stuff. Razer's headsets were always very well priced, but it's almost like their price to performance is like 1-to-1. Like that's $100 headset. Yeah, that's exactly what you're gonna get. $100 headset. That's
that's essentially
you're
what
not gonna
is, yeah.
get more.
But this is $120. You're paying $20 for lighting.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, it does have a bigger battery to accommodate that, right? So the non-RGB version of the Barracuda X Chroma doesn't have as good of a battery, and there are a few other little differences, I think, with the weight and stuff like that you have to. It is just basically an RGB version of the $100 headset.
Yeah.
Where you're paying a bit of a premium for lighting. And like I said, the lighting actually looks really, really cool on it, if that's what you're after, right? If that is like a feature that you like, even though it's not required, but you're like, I actually want that. That looks cool because it stands out amongst other headsets that don't have that. Because minimal is where most companies are going now with headsets. But
I think if you're going to have LED, and this could be a hot take, it doesn't feel like a hot take, but it could be. If you're going to have LEDs on your headset, you should be a streamer or making videos, because unless you are narcissistic and are staring at yourself in the mirror, you cannot see those LEDs while wearing the headset.
I know.
So would you
just see it? Yeah.
It's like I'm just checking if I had any on these ones, but like
no, but it's a fashion statement, right? Like it is for other people.
I just think it's like if you're going to spend like the difference between 100 and 120 US dollars, and the difference in terms of performance is like what 35 hours versus 70.
To be honest, like it's for like, who's going to find like having RGB on their headset cool? Kids, right?
Yeah,
and
I get. That's why I'm putting the PSA out. Like,
if you're busting this out and at your friend's place, or they come over, and then they're going to be like, "Ooh, look at that!" Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not for the solitary gamer that's just going to be like, "I'm just going to chuck on some headphones." This is not for me, right? Like, I have to review it at a certain level. I have to review it objectively. As in, like, subjectively from the perspective of who is this for, right? Like, whenever you review anything, it's like you don't just say like,
trying to find.
Is this for me? No, it's not for me, so it's crap, right? Like, who is it for? It's for people that want RGB lighting, and that's how that's how you go into it. I don't want it. Like, I don't like it. Doesn't like. I mean, if the best headset in the world had RGB lighting or didn't have RGB lighting, it wouldn't matter to me. I would either turn it off or be too lazy to turn off, or like it doesn't matter. Like, take it or leave it. Like, I don't dislike it, but like it does nothing for me.
Yeah, I agree for that. And look, if there's going to be concessions to have it on, then I'll just turn it off. But yeah, look, I get it. I also think it's really funny that there is no integration in the Synapse app for this.
Yeah, I know. Because the thing is, I reviewed the like a mouse.
Why did they do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I was fully expecting it. But like it actually is cheaper that way. Like they don't have to spend the development cost to do that. But the thing is, they've got this
But didn't they develop a new app?
Yeah, I don't know how long this mobile app has been in development. Apparently, like you can use it with the other Barracuda X, which is like...
Right.
It actually... Yeah, like I mean, it. To be honest, like companies will probably move to this direction and might actually go phone app only for wireless headsets, and it makes sense, right? Like if you got like a PlayStation, right? If your headset is for PS5 and PC, right? Which is what PC, this is for, right?
Yeah, but PC, if I don't want to have to choose, like, you know what I mean? Like if you're going to do one, do the other as well. Don't leave something behind.
But the thing is, don't be as limited as this, right? Like just have one custom EQ mode. Like it has to be like if you're going to have a mobile app, have the full stack of the software. Like if it was all of Synapse features in the app, then I wouldn't care, right? Like I would just use it on the phone.
No, because you haven't lost anything.
Console. Because it actually is a benefit for console gamers, because normally there isn't a native app for the headset for your console, right? Like you're beholden to the default tuning of the sound, and if you want to make customizations, you either have to connect it to your PC and do that or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it was cumbersome, but like, I mean, SteelSeries does it, right? Like their mobile app, which is only a new thing. Like they had like, problems with that sort of like that console barrier was like, well, if you want to make changes, you have to use the PC. But like their Sonar PC software, which you can use on any headset, is it has hundreds of presets for every single game. So their app for their mobile app, you can just select like all these major games, and they have like these really professionally tuned EQs that just automatically change for your headset, and you just do it on your phone. And then, like it needs to have
value,
more features, right? More customization.
Needs to provide more value. This looks like Razer has kind of kept it to the same design as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very Razer-y headset. Not for me personally, but look, they've always competed in my time reviewing them. I don't do them anymore, but I've always said they're very competitively priced.
They've always been good, right? Like,
yeah, they've always been like just above mid. You know what I mean? Like they're not mid because mid has like a negative connotation now. It's like, it's average.
Yeah.
I reckon they're just above average,
Yeah, they did like those, those aviator ones with like the metal sort of like hinges, and then they looked like the
Black Shark.
The Black Shark ones. They were
Shark
really good.
V2 was the last one.
The V3 was like, I think the one that like really stepped it up. Like, or it might have been the V2, but like that line was actually, I remember, really, they were actually really good. They were really good, and the microphone, like everything was like really good. But that was like their premium one, right? So it was like, it lives up to what you said, was basically like, this costs this much, so it should be good. And it's like, oh yes, it is good.
Yeah, this has got the yoke design instead.
Yeah, but all plastic, and like you can tell like that it's like the mid-range sort of thing. But it's fine though. Like the full swivel means that it can be packed away very easily. Yeah, detachable mic, which is what you want as well, and
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that is about it for that product. I'm going to move ahead and jump onto the monitor I would like to discuss. So yeah, okay. Ever wanted a super ultra wide monitor, but you don't want it to be that big? So you want an ultra wide, but you don't want it to be 49 inches or 40 inches. Well, you have 34-inch ultra wides that are on the market, and they are quite popular. But what if you just wanted it just a little bit bigger? Just a little bit bigger. Well, we have the 39-inch, and it is from Acer. It is the Acer Predator X39 OLED, and we are going to be going over all of the pros and the cons of this display, and we're going to try and find out who it is for. Okay, so to kick things off, this is Acer's latest offering in OLED. It is a 39-inch, 240 hertz refresh rate. This thing is a behemoth. Like this is a big monitor. It's designed for gamers that want a different level of immersion, that aren't satisfied with the 34 inches, but in my opinion, don't want to go to that 32:9 aspect ratio where they have to potentially buy another desk, etc., etc. So Acer is trying to hit that middle section. Like 34 inches isn't quite big enough, but they don't want to go to the massive super ultra wides that are becoming actually quite popular. There's more and more going out. I have personally been a massive fan of 34 inches for quite some time. This is my first time using a 39-inch monitor. And right off the bat, we're gonna get straight into the design of this thing. The curve is severe. It is huge. It is an 800R curve monitor. This is a lot when you're sitting in front of it. Like, viewing angles, at first I was like, well, if anyone was ever going to come stand behind me and have a look at the game that I'm playing, is going to have a rough time. No, OLED solves all of that. There is no viewing angle problems on this whatsoever, which is odd for a monitor that has an 800R curvature because, like I said, this thing is severe. design wise, we'll keep it on the physical side of things. So as I said, 3440 by 1440 is the resolution, 1440p, or as other people refer to, QHD. Panel type OLED, refresh rate 240, aspect ratio is 21:9. Speakers, yes it does, they're not very good. I'm just going to say that right now. I mean, this isn't surprising. Any gaming monitor speakers, yeah, it's like, but why are we even bothering putting them in my opinion? It's on, yeah, like 5-watt speakers. Anyway, response time. This is where it separates itself from the competition a little bit here. We have a 0.01 ms response time instead of 0.03. Just a quick, that you're not going to notice the difference. It's so damn fast that it doesn't even, like, unless you actually got the hardware to track it and measure it, you are not going to notice this in game. The difference between 0.01 and 0.03 is minuscule. HDR true black, so it's got the that really weird fake HDR thing that you don't want to turn on. Video ports, connectivity wise, we're rocking 2 times HDMI 2.1 ports and 2 times DisplayPort 1.4s, and we have the USB layout as well for all of those connectivity purposes. We have 1 times USB 3.2 Type C with 90 watt PD charging. Massive thumbs up from me in terms of these connectivity ports. This is what I want to see on my monitor. If you are going to put USB ports on my monitor, let me charge my devices at high speed. Moving on, USB, 1 times USB 3.2 Type C, 1 times USB 3.2 Type B, and 3 times USB 3.2 Type A. And look, I had the same problems with last week's discussion on the Corsair Xenon, I think that's the name that we landed on. I'm not even sure how to pronounce it, to be honest. Why do we have all these USB ports on the monitor? If you were to ask the companies, they would say for connectivity purposes, for you to transfer data, etc., etc. How many gamers are doing this? I don't know. I don't do it, and I actually work in video and editing and all of that, as you see from the video. I actually also I review the monitors, so I'm meant to use them. I don't. There's nothing there. I don't know what we're doing, really. It's just costing more money in the build. I'm sure there is a small portion of people out there that do use these ports, these upstream and downstream ports to move data, but let's be honest, if you are doing that kind of workflow with editing, it is more than likely that you have an array of USB ports that are faster in terms of speed already on the back of your computer in your motherboard. It's nice to have extra ports on the back of your monitor. It's also nice to not pay as much for your monitor. So I think if I was to critique it, let's get rid of some of these USB ports. Let's put a couple. Let's put 1 or 2, so I can charge my laptop, I can charge my phone. That's really good. That's actually genuinely handy. And as you'll see as we get into the close-up images and the videos of the X39, they've put it in a really good spot. And this is what I really want to see this on future gaming monitors as well. It is not on the back of the monitor, so I don't have to stand up, reach around, find the port just to charge my phone. Like, if I'm going to do that, I'm just going to plug it into my computer. Let's be real. Instead, Acer has put it on the underside of the monitor, so it's as simple as picking up the cord and just popping it in at the underside. And right next to that is also a USB-A port and a 3.5mm headphone jack, which Yes, 3.5 millimeter. Visa mounting, it does have it. Its weight is 10 kilos with the stand. I am pretty sure it's got height adjustment, and of course, with every other OLED, we have 3 years of warranty, which covers your burn-in problems as well. So let's move on to the design. This is probably the most interesting aspect of the monitor, in my opinion. Obviously the performance is incredible. OLED, like as we would have heard last week, in the previous reviews, like if you're gaming on OLED, it's really is the cream of the crop. Like nowadays, if any of these latest new OLEDs, it's gonna be more difficult for you to find a monitor that's bad than it is good. So a lot of the variations come into the design. And the X39, if I was to summarize its design in one word, ambitious is the word I would choose here. This is different. Acer, this monitor feels premium. It feels real, like the build quality is good. It has a hard outer plastic shell, not really too surprising for a gaming monitor. That's usually what they have. This plastic does feel strong. There isn't a lot of creaks as well when picking it up, so that adds to the overall feel of it. It feels premium. This is a very minimal aesthetic design as well, so it doesn't have a lot of those loud LEDs on the back, which again only increase the cost of the monitor. And just like headsets, if you put LEDs on the back of your monitor, you can't see them. So I don't know who they're there for, unless you've got that LED that Asus, there's a bit of a side bit, that LED on the back of an Asus monitor shines the Asus logo onto the wall. I don't know if you want an Asus logo on your wall, but hey, it's there. X39 doesn't have any LEDs. It's clean, it's minimal, it's got this covert, I describe it as more of a covert gamer aesthetic, where there is a simplistic design to it where, you know, if you walk past it in an office, you probably wouldn't notice it. Like, it wouldn't stand out in a sea of other office displays. But if you took a look at it, you're like, no, this is a gaming display here. It's got that brushed gunmetal look around the top of the display as well. And yes, it seems that Acer has put a lot of work into the connectivity offerings here. We've got built-in KVM switch, which pairs perfectly with the HDMI 2.1 ports, DisplayPort 1.4. So look, this monitor also works with all your, I think you would get black bars on either side of your game if you plugged in a console, but you can if you want to. And because it has the extra connectivity ports, you can, and the KVM switch, you can dance between your console and your PC with no problems whatsoever. We'll move down to the stand here. Oh boy, we're going with another 4 feet stand. If you heard last week's episode or any of this podcast, you know that I'm not a fan of 4 feet because I play at low sensitivity on my mouse. So when I play with first person shooter titles, I need to be gliding across my desk with large swipes because I don't want shake in my crosshair. And because of this and the way that I play games, I know a lot of other competitive gamers play games like this as well. The forked stands can become an obstacle on my desktop space. So I usually opt to take the monitor off of its stand and use a desktop clamp. And unsurprisingly, the larger the displays go, the wider the feet get, the bigger this problem is. So the reason I'm saying this is if you have a smaller desk, just be cautious about how much room the stand is going to take up, and it might be worth investing in a desktop clamp. What's great is that a lot of, pretty much all of them, I've struggled to come across one throughout my testing, that gaming monitors mostly come with VESA support now, which is the claw support on the back of the monitor there. And yeah, the stands are, for the most part, removable and can easily be set up on a desk clamp, and that will alleviate this entire problem with the forked feet. Okay, let's get to the panel breakdown. As I mentioned earlier, OLED is the best of the best. You're going to struggle to find a recently released OLED panel that is lackluster. They're all incredible for gaming. And the reason for that is, I'll just quickly go over it, is we have incredibly deep blacks, effectively limitless contrast ratio, because the OLED pixels are able to turn off entirely individually as well. So colors that are next to off pixels pop way more, and that's how you measure your contrast ratio. The image clarity, incredible. Refresh rate, incredible. The PPI for this thing is where it falls short. It is rough out here. If I was just, and like I said, the image clarity is really good, but it just is lacking that density that you would get on a 4K monitor or a monitor that has a higher PPI. And for those that don't know, what I'm talking about is the pixel per inch is the measurement, and that is the amount of pixels that are measured in a square inch. So the X39 has a PPI of 95. And for comparison's sake, the PPI of a 27-inch 1080p gaming monitor is 82. And while that is severe in terms of PPI, the difference, the visual quality is comparable. So because the monitor is 39 inches and Acer has opted for a 1440p 3440 by 1440p resolution, we are lacking on the PPI front. And for those wondering where the best viewing experiences are in terms of PPI, it is between 110 and 140, with 140 being the lower end, smaller sized 4K monitors, probably the 27 inch if I was to guess. This means the X39 falls horribly short in terms of the best viewing experiences. I would have really liked to see a higher resolution variant of this, particularly. I'm not sure what the lateral resolution would be, but I would like to see 1440p change to 25 or 2160 or 2560, whatever the 4K variant is. I'm not sure how it would go up exactly, but there needs to be more pixels on the screen because this is 39 inches. This is too big. There's too little pixels. But look, you're looking at these pixels through OLED. It still looks really good. It looks really good, but it's just because I've used other monitors, I can see where this could be, if you know what I mean. Again, because we're at 39 inches, we have some problems with text fringing on this one. 39 inches, the OLED panel, all of these things create this problem of text fringing as well. So just a quick overview on it. The lack of pixel density means some problems with OLEDs begin to rear their head. Text fringing is a real problem here. And this is entirely attributed to the X39 using LG's OLED panel, so WOLED, and this is different from the subpixel structure that is used in a QD OLED panel, which is made by Samsung. LG has been behind Samsung in terms of performance of their OLED panels, and particularly in the text fringing department, which pretty much around the outside of text on white backgrounds or black backgrounds. I think it's a bit easier to spot on a black background when you're looking at white text. You'll get a kind of like a halo-y kind of effect around that. And that is because of the subpixel layout that LG or Samsung has opted for to create those colors. Like it could be in the shape of a Q or a W or whatever generation or shape that they have opted for. Different subpixel structure layouts cause different problems with text fringing. Some are worse and some are much better. For example, the Samsung's third generation QD OLED panel is pretty much 95% squashed every single text fringing problem, even to the point where I can confidently, in particularly at higher resolution displays. So particularly at the 4K 240 hertz variants of QD OLED panel, those have no problems whatsoever in terms of text fringing. Obviously not as clear as an IPS panel, but it's to the point where it's negligible difference. I can confidently recommend the higher resolution QD OLED panels to people that want to flex between word processing tasks and games. In this case, with the X39, not looking good, especially because of the price tag, which we will get to at the end. It was significant eye discomfort for me personally, but then again, I am quite heavy on the word processing aspect of the monitor. Of course, I played games on it as well, and they were perfectly fine. This part of the panel is for those people that, you know, flex between word processing tasks and gaming as well. And considering the price, I would probably be wanting to be able to do both of those things if I was purchasing this monitor. We're moving along to performance. Oh, sorry. Actually, before we do that, we should talk about the OLED care stuff that is within the OSD menu. Acer has done a pretty good job. It's a straightforward OSD, which is something that I like. The on-screen when gaming monitors have on-screen display options that are paginated, where there's settings behind settings behind settings, it makes me feel sick, and it's annoying. It's really annoying. It's if you're going to go to your OSD settings for your monitor, all of your basic settings that you would most likely be changing should be front and center. And Acer has done that here. So if you click on that, if you use the multi-directional joystick, which is located underneath the center of the monitor, you're presented with, you know, your brightness, your HDR, all of that's right there, which is great. Samsung, not so much. You got to use like a remote. There's 4 different settings. It's a nightmare. They really need to do work on that. Yeah, it's really not good. Okay, as for OLED care options, which is software that is baked into the panel itself to make sure the OLED panel remains healthy. It's become a big part of OLED gaming monitors with the widespread concerns of burn-in. The X39 every 4 hours will prompt you to initiate pixel cleaning. You can choose to do this or you can choose not to do this. I would recommend you carry depending on how long you are using the monitor for, and if you are say if you were just sitting in Windows desktop for 8 hours or so, I would definitely be initiating pixel cleaning when you have a time to do that. This will prolong the life of your monitor and reduce the likelihood of any burn-in occurring for icons on your taskbar, the time and date, even icons on your desktop. And stuff like that. These burn-in is getting slowly squashed out by future generations of panels, but it is definitely still a problem. It's not more so such a problem for people that are just gaming because the entire frame of your screen is constantly changing, so the pixels are constantly refreshing. But if your OLED panel does have OLED care features, it is recommended they be carried out periodically. Let's move on to performance. As with every single gaming monitor I am lucky enough to test, I like to test a wide variety of games to see where the monitor best performs. And from there, we can derive the most applicable gamer for this display. The games I tested on the X39 are the following: Apex Legends, Overwatch 2, League of Legends, Counter-Strike 2, God of War, Cyberpunk 2077, Doom Eternal, Black Myth Wukong, Age of Empires 4, and Age of Mythology Retold. This is awesome. Every game looks awesome. They feel awesome. There is no tearing. There is no ghosting. There's nothing that I would, and I'm looking for these things as well. This is what I believe is past the gaming monitors have reached past the point where the average gamer is going to notice these problems. Like, these are only comparable when the monitor is side by side, or if you're measuring this via hardware, and even then I would argue these differences are negligible, depending on the price of the products, of course. As for the games that shone the most throughout my testing, League of Legends, again, incredible on a ultra wide display. You get more field of view. Age of Empires, Age of Mythology, these games look awesome across 39 inches and on OLED. So if you are into strategy games, this monitor is particularly really good. 34 inches, which is what we talked about last week with the Corsair Xeneon. It's nice, but when you're sitting in front of 39 inches and you're looking at the top down of your city that you've built, or the team fight that is about to occur in League of Legends, it really does look immersive. It feels immersive. You feel like you're being drawn into the game. The crispness of the OLED, the colors, all of it, it really is impressive. It's rich. Black Myth Wukong, Cyberpunk 2077, and Overwatch 2 also highlights, absolute highlights here for the X39. Apex Legends kind of sucks for ultra wide, and that is no fault of the monitor itself, is that the game natively renders at 16:9 and then stretches out to 21:9, which sucks. So games that natively support the 21:9 aspect ratio are going to perform the best here. That is a no-brainer. But look, this is OLED at its, well, this is WOLED at its finest here. A gamer that is looking to most to get out of that will get the most out of this monitor will be playing the League of Legends, Overwatch 2, Doom Eternal, games that can really take advantage of the full size aspect of the monitor, that you can really enjoy the 39 inches. I also believe, and I'm not a racing gamer by any means, this would be awesome for a racing sim setup. The 800R curvature, if you were sitting down in a racing sim chair that's angled perfectly, I really think this monitor could be the last missing piece of a setup of someone's racing sim. I didn't test any games on it, but you can just tell from the size and the quality that this would be a perfect fit here. So should you buy the X39? Who should buy it? What should happen here? Should you run out and get this monitor? Well, of course, that depends on the monitor that you have now. Obviously, make sure your PC is able to push 3440 by 1440 at 240 hertz. Of course. Look, the gamer that's into this is looking for immersive experiences that don't necessarily revolve around first-person shooter titles. So this is a variety type, I think, gamer. Also, the gamer would need to make sure that the 21:9 aspect ratio is natively supported in the games that they are playing here. You also want to be able to take advantage of the 240 hertz refresh rate. So that would mean competitive games like Overwatch 2, which does have native support and looks incredible. League of Legends, your Rocket Leagues, the games that aren't as graphically intensive, but you can hit that 240. You also want to be playing those ones. Like I said, the racing simulator. I'm not confident in recommending this monitor for someone that flexes between word processing tasks and games. I think the price tag, and get this, is $1,499. I think that's too much to ask. Like if that's your plan, if you want, I'm like, I want a monitor that does kicks ass at gaming, but it's also going to be really good for when I do work. This ain't it. There's better options on the market. You can get a higher PPI, and you can get way less eye strain if you're doing long word processing sessions. So this is the X39 is for someone that wants big but doesn't want 32:9, which is fair enough because it's insane. But it's not for everybody, unfortunately. I'm just going to rattle off what I've given it. So performance, I've given it 90%. Quality, I've given it 90%. 80 features, I gave it 85, and the value 85 for an overall 88% and no award on Tweaktown. Bottom line here, just read you the paragraph that I've written on my written review, which should be linked down below if you want more details. Acer's X39 is a gaming monitor that is aimed at someone that doesn't want a 32:9 super ultra wide, but wants an ultra wide as big as possible. The X39 is a niche gaming monitor and comes with a pretty hefty price tag, but it could be exactly what someone needs to complete a setup for certain games. So there you have it, folks. That is a 39-inch ultra wide. My first time using it. It was fun. Positives and negatives. Should you buy it? Might be perfect for you. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think the pixel density would be something that would eventually get to me.
Yep. That's exactly what happened.
But I think the curvature as well would definitely factor into the immersion. I think like at that size, gaming on it, like there's no bad OLED display, so I think like it would just be pretty, like you said, awesome for like certain games, like at that size, that curvature, that OLED brightness or color accuracy, contrast, etc. 240 hertz as well. Like there's all these pluses, but yeah, but also like one thing, like having the cables on the underside of a monitor, which monitors have been done for ages, right? With the Predator ones, especially having those like being like raised slightly, because I've used Predator monitors, and having all the cables like that, man, they're so hard. I find them almost
what do you mean?
Impossible to hit the ports, like where the USB ports are and like that.
On
like
the
connecting
underneath?
That stuff. Yeah, it's impossible to connect that stuff unless you're like putting your head underneath or having
it's
the monitor
better than
coming
the
off
back
the desk.
of the display.
No, the back is better. They should be like TVs. They should be on the side, but like having that being like indented so you don't see them, so the cables can just drop naturally.
Yeah, I hear you. There's not really
not
like
easy
a
to
good
connect
spot
cables to these
anywhere
things.
for it. Now
If
that
you got,
I
like,
was just thinking about it, because when I was testing it, I'm like, oh, I need to charge my phone, and then you can see it on the like when it was sitting in front of me. I had it high enough where I could see it.
Yeah,
I just picked up the USB-C and just put it in underneath. I'm like, that's nice. That's
I
90
wouldn't
watt PD
disconnect it
charging.
though. I would keep it plugged in because they'll be like every single time trying to connect it underneath.
Yeah, you do end up leaving it in there, and it doesn't look the best in terms of aesthetics for your desk.
Somebody needs to come up with a better version.
Yeah, I don't know where they're going to put it. I think you're right. Maybe on the side, but then I don't want a cable coming out the side of my monitor either. So I don't know where you put it. It's an interesting display.
But outside of that, like 39 inches does sound pretty cool.
I want it in 39 inches, but I want it in 4K.
Yep.
That's ideal. If I could get that in 4K, this would probably be my favorite display.
Yeah.
That's the discussion. When are we going to get 39-inch 4K monitors? Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed those news stories and review products. We ran out of time. We can't get to the Rapid Trigger gaming magnetic keyboard review that Kosta was planning on talking about because I talked too long. That's exactly why. And we'll get to that next week. Of course, with a bunch of other news stories, and by then I'll probably have the 32:9 super ultra wide monitor review done as well. So bit of a stride in terms of ultra wide monitors over at the Tweettown show. As always, you can go to tweettown.com to check out any of the news posts that we have been discussing this week. If you also head down to the description, there is a link to a Google Docs document which has all of our show notes, all of the links to the reviews for the products that we talked about, the running order, etc., etc. We hide nothing over here at Tweetdown. You can see the prep for the show if you like. Thank you very much for listening and making it this far. Please go like, comment, and subscribe. And sign us off, Kosta.
Yeah, and we'll catch you next week on the TT show.
Bye.